We've got 12.
Okay, here, Helmer.
We're good. I didn't do it. I did do it.
I will now call to order the Committee on Labor and Commerce. And as always, I ask that everyone be seated in this full committee. We're going to ask that the clerk to open the rolls so we can mark our attendance. And we have a quorum. We are going to begin with subcommittee reports, but we are right at that time of session where everyone is running back and forth presenting their bills. And I have a commitment from General Laws that they will hear my bill first if I get over there first. So I'm going to hand the gavel over to Subcommittee Chair Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's get right to it. The first item of our business is a report from Subcommittee Number 1. Delegate Maldonado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. HB 190, patroned by Delegate Converse Fowler, is regarding financial institutions, prevention of continuation of known fraudulent transactions and occurrences. And the substitute is a Section 1 bill directing the Office of the Attorney General to convene a work group to review best practices for financial institutions in preventing and responding to financial fraud or scams with a report due December 1, 2026. And the subcommittee recommends reporting with substitute by a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Okay. There's a motion to report substitute properly seconded. Any further discussion from members of the panel? Okay, the clerk will please open the roll. Members, please record your votes. Please close the roll. Bill reports by a 12-1 vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, next is HB 476, patroned by Delegate Watts, regarding continuing care providers and meeting requirements. There is a substitute that replaces the languages on lines 21 to 24 with a provision giving representatives elected by the residents the right to meet with the CEO annually to discuss issues related to the facility. Our subcommittee recommends reporting with substitute by a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
I have a motion to report the substitute and a second. Any further discussion from members of the committee? I can't see the usual tablet, so. All right. Please open the roll. Members, please record your votes. The bill reports by a vote of 14-2.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, next is HB 484, patroned by Delegate Shin, regarding health insurance ethics and fairness in carrier business practices and downcoded claims. There is a substitute that it requires a decision to downcode a claim to be determined by a natural person or an electronic system that reflects correct coding standards and considers all relevant patient data. Also, it requires that all downcoding dispute decisions shall be reviewed and adjudicated by a natural person. The subcommittee recommends reporting with substitute by a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
There's a motion to report the substitute properly seconded. Any further discussion from members of the committee? Seeing none, please open the roll. Members, please cast your votes. Please close the roll. The substitute reports by a vote of 15-1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next, we have HB 490, patroned by Delegate Hope, regarding health insurance coverage for early refill prescription eye drops. The bill prohibits a health carrier from denying coverage to a covered person of an early refill of prescription eye drops if, one, the prescription eye drops are a covered benefit, two, the amount of time that has elapsed from the previous dispensing of such prescription would result in at least, and here's where substitute language comes in, amends this percentage to 85%. So it would now, with substitute, says that from the previous dispensing of such prescription would result in at least 85% of such prescription eye drops being used if taken consistently with the prescriber's directions. And three, the prescriber has indicated that additional quantities are medically necessary, and the refill requested does not exceed such additional quantity. The provisions of the bill are applicable to contracts, policies, or plans delivered, issued for delivery, or renewed in the Commonwealth on and after January 1, 2027. The subcommittee recommends reporting with amendments and referring to appropriations on a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
There's a motion to report this substitute and refer to appropriations, properly seconded. Any further discussion from members of the panel? Seeing none, please open the roll. Members, please cast your votes. The bill reports by a vote of 17-1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next is HB 16, patroned by Delegate Shin, regarding health insurance and reporting requirements. This bill amends various reporting requirements related to health insurance, including by requiring the State Corporation Commission to maintain and publicly post an inventory of mandated benefits and providers, requiring health carriers to report annually on provider terminations and reinstatements, and consolidating reports related to balance billing and arbitration. The bill repeals reporting requirements related to the Comparable Health Care Service Incentive Program and Virginia Health Savings Account Plan. The subcommittee recommends reporting on a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
There's a motion to report the bill, properly seconded. Any further discussion from members of the panel? Seeing none, please open the roll. Members, please cast your votes. Bear with us. There it is. Please record your votes. Please close the roll. HB 618 reports by a vote of 17-1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next, we have HB 625, patroned by Delegate Henson, regarding health insurance limit on cost-sharing payments for prescription drugs under certain plans. There is an amendment and adds a reenactment clause. The bill more generally requires each carrier that offers a health plan in either the individual or small group market to ensure that at least 50% of all health plans offered by the carrier, or at least one health plan if the carrier offers fewer than 2 health plans, in each rating area and in each of the bronze, silver, gold, and platinum levels of coverage in the individual and small group market conform with the following. 1, a plan that offers a silver, gold, or platinum level of coverage limits a person's cost-sharing payment for prescription drugs covered under the plan to an amount that does not exceed $100 per 30-day supply of the prescription drug. And 2, a plan that offers a bronze level of coverage limits a person's cost-sharing payment for prescription drugs covered under the plan to an amount that does not exceed $150 per 30-day supply of the prescription drug. The bill provides that such limits apply at any point in the benefit design, including before and after any applicable deductible is reached. The bill requires that any plans offered to meet its requirements are A, clearly and appropriately named to aid the consumer or plan sponsor in the plan selection process, and B, marketed in the same manner as other plans offered by the health insurance carrier. The subcommittee recommends reporting with amendment on a vote of 6-3, and I so move.
Second.
There's a motion to report, properly seconded. Any further discussion from members of the committee? This is a motion to report as amended, right?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no discussion, please open the roll. Members, please cast your votes. bill reports by a vote of 14 to 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next, we have HB 631, patroned by Delegate Coulson. With amendments, the amendments strike section subsections D and E of the introduced bill and direct the department to award the third-party administrator to serve as the state PBM by January 1, 2027. More broadly, the bill requires the Department of Medical Assistance Services contract with the state pharmacy benefits manager to, one, require that the ingredient cost reimbursement is based on the national average drug acquisition cost, or if unavailable, the wholesale acquisition cost minus a discount by the department, plus a professional dispensing fee determined by the department. 2, require real-time or near real-time transparency in drug costs, rebates, collected and paid, dispensing fees paid, administrative fees paid, and all other charges, fees, costs, and holdbacks, claim denial appeals, and network participation. Number 3, prohibit the state pharmacy benefits manager from steering Medicaid recipients to affiliated pharmacies through differential cost sharing, restrictive network design, or the mandatory use of a mail order pharmacy provider. 4, require the state pharmacy benefits manager to A, meet network adequacy standards established by the department, B, allow any willing pharmacy to participate in the pharmacy network, C, verify that all contracted pharmacies are actively accepting Medicaid recipients, D, submit annual reports containing certain information, E, disclose to the department pricing and maximum acquisition cost methodologies, and F, allow invoice-based or national average drug acquisition cost-based appeals and require an adjustment of rates network-wide when an appeal is upheld, and 5, include enforcement mechanisms and monetary penalties for noncompliance. The subcommittee recommends reporting with amendments and referring to appropriations on a vote of 9 to 0, and I so move.
Second.
I have a motion to report the bill as amended, properly seconded. Any further conversation or questions from members of the
And
committee?
refer to appropriations.
Oh, I'm sorry, to refer to appropriations. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please open the roll. The bill refers and heads to appropriation by a vote of 18 to 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next up is HB 676, patroned by myself. There's a substitute that removes the definition of electronic attachment, adds a delayed effective date of January 1, 2027. This bill more broadly is regarding health insurance carrier business practice and electronic attachments, and provides that certain information may be submitted by a provider to a health insurance carrier through electronic attachment. The bill also requires carriers to provide an alternative electronic payment method if the carrier uses a payment method that imposes a transaction or processing fee on the provider. The subcommittee recommends reporting with substitute on a vote of 9 to 0, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion to report, properly seconded. Any further conversation, questions from members of the panel? Seeing none? This is a motion to report the substitute. That's correct, Mr. Clerk. All right, please open the roll. Members, please cast your votes. HB 676 reports by a vote of 18 to 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, next up is HB 677, also patroned by myself. With substitute, the substitute adds a new section under regulation of rates, which prohibits increasing premiums in certain instances relating to the age and condition of the roof. It also prohibits contractors from engaging in the unauthorized practice of public adjusting, and amends the definition of advertisement for the Residential Property Owners Protection Act created by the bill. More broadly, the bill prohibits insurers from refusing coverage or refusing to renew or increasing the premiums of a policy written to insure an owner-occupied dwelling solely based on the age or condition of the roof, except in certain circumstances. The bill also contains provisions related to consumer protection in the context of contractors providing roofing services for residential property owners. The bill prohibits certain advertisements and conduct by contractors in such context. The bill concludes contract terms that must be included by contractors in such context, and permits a residential property owner to cancel a contract for roofing services in the case of a declaration of a state of emergency by the governor applicable to the geographic region where the property is located. Provisions of the bill related to prohibited conduct and requirements for contractors providing roofing services are subject to the enforcement provisions of the Consumer Protection Act. Mr. Chair, the subcommittee recommends reporting with substitute on a vote of 8-1, and I so move.
Second.
There's a motion to report with a substitute, properly seconded. Any further questions or conversation from members of the panel? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please open the roll. Members, please cast your votes. Six, 7 reports by a vote of 19-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the next bill is HB 701, also patroned by myself. It has a substitute that amends an additional section relating to adverse terminations. The bill most broadly is regarding health insurance notice of adverse terminations and right to request external review. It requires health carriers to send in writing to a covered person the notice of an adverse termination or final adverse termination and the covered person's right to request an external review as required by current law within 5 business days after the adverse termination or final adverse termination has been made. The bill also requires such notice to include certain information related to the person who made the adverse determination or final adverse termination. Mr. Chair, the subcommittee recommends reporting with substitute on a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
That would be Madam Chair. Our fearless leader is back.
Madam Chair. You sure did. Madam Chair, our subcommittee recommends reporting with substitute on a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Okay. Any questions from any member of the committee? And the clerk shall open the rolls. And the clerk shall close the roll. The measure passes 20-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next, Madam Chair.
The last bill by me, but not in the agenda, is HB 736 by yours truly. There is amendments, and the amendments change the language that says the minimum of 6 or 12 months to the duration of the authorization shall be no less than 6 or 12 months, and adds efficiency and clinically appropriate on line 47. More broadly, the bill amends existing required provisions for health carrier contracts related to prior authorizations for drug prescriptions. Current law requires that if a prior authorization is approved for prescription drugs, then such prescription drugs have been scheduled, provided, or delivered to the patient consistent with the authorization. Health carriers may not revoke, limit, condition, modify, or restrict that authorization except in certain circumstances. The bill requires this limitation on carriers to apply for a minimum of 6 months for initial authorizations and a minimum of 12 months for continued authorizations. The bill also adds circumstances under which a prior authorization may be revoked, limited, conditioned, modified, or restricted by a carrier, including 1, final action by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, other regulatory agencies, or the manufacturer communicating a patient efficacy issue that would affect the authorization, and 2, when additional safety monitoring is recommended by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, other regulatory agencies, or the manufacturer. Madam Chair, the subcommittee recommends reporting with amendments and referring to appropriations on a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
And properly moved and seconded. Any questions from any member of the committee? The clerk shall open the roll. And the clerk shall close the roll. The measure passes 21-0. We will report with amendments and refer to appropriations. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, we have HB 795 by Delegate Reeser. This bill has a substitute, and the substitute removes the specific words naloxone and non-prescription naloxone. It also requires pharmacies to display a notice stating that health insurance coverage may be available for a non-prescription opioid antagonist. More broadly, the bill requires each health insurer, corporation providing health care subscription plans, and health maintenance organization whose policy, contract, or plan includes a coverage for prescription drugs to include coverage for at least 1 opioid antagonist used for overdose reversal dispense pursuant to an oral, written, or standing order of a prescriber on the lowest cost tier of the insurer's, corporation's, or health maintenance organization's prescription drug formulary. And 2, at least one non-prescription opioid antagonist used for overdose reversal that is available over the counter. The bill provides that such coverage shall be exempt from any prior authorization or step therapy requirement on coverage of benefits. The subcommittee recommended reporting with substitute on a vote of 9-0, but I also see that we have a letter to refer to appropriations. So I don't know if we have to do a vote for that piece before we report and refer, or should we report?
Report and refer.
Okay, so we're going to report and refer. The committee voted on a vote of 9-0 to pass it, and we're going to do so, but also refer to appropriations. I so move.
That's correct. Any questions from any member of the committee? And I'll ask the clerk to open the roll. And the clerk shall close the roll. The measure passes 20-0. We will report this bill and refer with the substitute and refer to appropriations.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Chair. Next, we have HB 813, patroned by Delegate Sullivan, regarding health insurance application of cost-sharing prohibitions. It provides that provisions of state law that prohibit a health insurance carrier from imposing a cost-sharing requirement on an enrollee for receiving a health care service, 1, apply only when such enrollee receives such health care service from a participating provider under the health plan benefit, and 2, do not apply if the application of such prohibition would disqualify a high-deductible health benefit plan from eligibility for a health savings account under federal law. The subcommittee recommends reporting on a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any questions from any member of the committee? Then the clerk shall open the roll. And the clerk shall close the roll. The measure passes 19-0. We will report the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, we have HB 830, patroned by Delegate Coulson. With the substitute, it removes the reference to Medicaid in Section 38.2-3468 and changes 90 days to 1 year on line 128, makes changes in subsection D of 38.2-3467, and adds a delayed effective date of July 1, 2027. More broadly, the bill requires a pharmacy benefits manager to use pass-through pricing models and prohibits a pharmacy benefits manager from deriving income from pharmacy benefit management services provided to a carrier except for income derived from a pharmacy benefits management fee. The bill prohibits a pharmacy benefit manager from reversing or resubmitting the claim of a pharmacist or pharmacy without meeting certain requirements. It prohibits reducing any payments to a pharmacist or pharmacy to an effective rate of reimbursement, or retroactively denying or reducing a claim or aggregate of claims except under certain circumstances. The bill requires the State Corporation Commission to annually prepare a report based on certain information that examines the overall impact of prescription drug costs on healthcare premiums in the Commonwealth. And additionally, the bill requires the Commission, the State Corporation Commission, to examine the practice of carriers or pharmacy benefit managers requiring or inducing covered individuals to utilize pharmacy services at an affiliated pharmacy. Madam Chair, the subcommittee recommends reporting with substitute and referring to appropriations on a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we report this bill with substitute and refer to appropriations. Any questions from any member of the committee? And I ask that the clerk would open the roll. And the clerk shall close the roll. The measure passes 19-0, the bill will be reported with substitute and referred to appropriations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 902, patroned by Delegate Lopez, is next up in the queue. This is regarding financial institutions and out-of-state credit unions. It clarifies that the National Credit Union Administration is not required to designate an agent for service of process, and agree that in the absence of such designation service may be upon the clerk of the State Corporation Commission. Current law requires out-of-state credit unions conducting business in the Commonwealth to have any insurer of shares designate such an agent and agree to such service in the absence of such designation. The subcommittee recommends reporting on a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we report this bill. Any questions from any member of the committee? Then I'll ask the clerk to open the rolls. And the clerk should close the roll. The measure passes 19-0. Bill reports.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. The next bill is HB 1007, patroned by Delegate Tran. With amendments, the amendments refer to civil actions against a participating hospital or physician to the existing process where the Workers' Compensation Commission determines if the cause of action satisfies the requirement of the birth injury fund. Requires the cost of implementing an electronic filing system to be reimbursed by the program, and it also adds and medically necessary, in quotes, after responsible expenses in lines 190 and 192. More generally, the bill makes numerous changes to the Virginia Birth-Related Neurological Injury Compensation Fund program and the fund. The bill alters the composition of the program's board of directors to include 3 relatives of current or former beneficiaries, allows for the electronic submission of claims, and expands discovery of parties to a claim. The bill further requires the program's board of directors to establish a blanket surety bond program for all employees with access to the fund, and requires the board to meet at least once monthly. And finally, the bill increases from $100,000 to $500,000 the amount that may be awarded to families whose infant has sustained a birth-related neurological injury. Madam Chair, the subcommittee recommends reporting with amendments on a vote of 10-0, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we report this bill with amendments. Any questions from any member of the committee? Then I'll ask the clerk to open the roll so we can vote. And the clerk shall close the roll. This measure passes 20-0. This bill passed. It reports with amendments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, we have HB 1166, patroned by Delegate Carroll, regarding financial institutions, check cashiers, expiration of registration. The bill provides that for check cashiers registered with the State Corporation Commission, such registration shall automatically expire if a registrant fails to pay the annual fee by July 1 of each year. The bill has a delayed effective date of January 1, 2027. The subcommittee recommends reporting on a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we report this bill. Any questions from any member of the committee? Any comments? Then I'll ask the clerk to open the roll so we can cast our votes. We're doing so well. We're moving faster than this computer. Thank you. And the clerk shall close the roll. This measure reports 19-1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next, we have HB 1182, patroned by Delegate Thomas. With amendments, it adds the phrase with or without a prescription after over the counter. More broadly, the bill requires health insurance carriers to provide coverage under any health insurance contract, policy, or plan that includes coverage for prescription drugs on an outpatient basis, for contraceptive drugs and contraceptive devices as defined in the bill, including those available over the counter. The bill prohibits a health insurance carrier from imposing upon any person receiving contraceptive benefits pursuant to the provisions of the bill any co-payment, co-insurance payment, or fee except in certain circumstances. The subcommittee recommends reporting with amendments and referring to appropriations on a vote of 6-3, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's properly moved and seconded that we report this bill as amended and refer to appropriations. I'll ask the clerk to open the rolls. And the clerk shall close the roll. The measure passes 15-5. The bill will be reported with amendments and referred to appropriations. Chair
Thank you, Madam-
Maldonado?
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 1214, patroned by Delegate Delaney, is next in the queue regarding health insurance, cost-sharing payments for insulin and diabetes equipment and supplies limit. It decreases the cap on the cost-sharing payment that a covered person is required to pay for a covered prescription insulin drug from $50 to $35 for a 30-day supply of the prescription insulin drug, and provides such cap in an aggregate cap that applies in situations where the covered person is prescribed more than one insulin drug. The bill also establishes such an aggregate cap of $35 for a 30-day supply of diabetes equipment and supplies. Madam Chair, the subcommittee recommends reporting on a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we report this bill. Any questions, comments from members of the committee? Then I'll ask the clerk to open the rolls. And the clerk shall close the roll. This measure reports 20-0.
Madam Chair, thank
Yes.
you. HB 1212-8, patroned by Delegate O'Quinn, has a substitute. The substitute is a Section 1 bill directing the Bureau of Insurance to study the use of credit information by insurers in connection with underwriting motor vehicle insurance, with a report due October 1, 2026. The subcommittee recommended reporting with substitute 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
Madam Chair, I have a substitute motion.
Yes.
I move we lay this bill on the table.
Second.
Okay. It's been properly moved and seconded that we table this bill. It's not debatable. It's a recorded vote. Are we ready to cast our votes? And the clerk shall close the roll. The measure, the bill is tabled 15-5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 1390, delegated, patroned by Delegate Chair Ward. It has a substitute, and the substitute adds hospital outpatient infusion center or other clinical setting after physician practice on lines 12, 77, and 136. It also adds a provision prohibiting an insurer or PBM from retaliating against a pharmacy for exercising their rights under the bill. The substitute further restores language stating that the Commission does not have jurisdiction to adjudicate controversies arising out of that section. The bill further prohibits an insurer, health maintenance organization, corporation providing preferred provider subscription contracts or pharmacy benefit manager from imposing upon any person receiving pharmaceutical benefits any policy or practice requiring or incentivizing certain provisions related to the delivery of prescription drugs. A violation of the bill's provisions constitutes an unfair trade practice under existing law and is subject to injunctive, penalty, and enforcement provisions in existing law. Madam Chair, the subcommittee recommends reporting with substitute and referring to appropriations on a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we report the substitute and refer to appropriations. Any questions from any member of the committee? Then I'll ask the clerk to open the roll. And the clerk shall close the roll. This measure passes with a substitute and is referred to appropriations 20-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my Subcommittee 1 report.
Thank you so much, Subcommittee 1. Did a fantastic job. And I just want to mention that there's only one committee meeting left for you all. But let me just say today that you've done a fantastic job. Look how quickly our meeting went. You did all your substitutes, all your amendments ahead of time. Whenever we do that, we can get through these 4 committees so quickly. So thank you so much. We're going to go on to the Subcommittee 3 report.
Thank you.
Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My report begins with HB 429 from Delegate LaVere Bowling, which makes various changes related to the content and process for an integrated resource plan developed by an electric utility that provides a forecast of its load obligations and a plan to meet those obligations. The bill extends the planning time frame from 15 to 20 years, requires Appalachian Power to file an IRP by removing an exception from the definition of electric utility. It changes the frequency of utilities required to file an IRP from biannually to triennially. It requires utilities to consider the use of grid-enhancing technologies as alternatives to new transmission infrastructure, and when new transmission lines are envisioned, to provide the reasons grid-enhancing technologies are not sufficient to defer or eliminate the need for new transmission infrastructure. It requires the Commission to establish guidelines that ensure that utilities develop comprehensive integrated resource plans and provide meaningful public engagement and maximum transparency during the planning process. To conduct a proceeding by July 1, 2027, and at least once every 5 years thereafter, to identify and review each of its existing orders relevant to integrated resource plans, to determine if such orders remain necessary and effective and are not overly burdensome, and to convene a work group to make recommendations on the required guidelines. Madam Chair, there was a substitute which no longer amends Section 56-580 and adds a definition of surplus interconnection service, and it makes other small changes throughout the bill. The substitute also includes a work group convened by the SCC and CEUR to develop recommendations about integrated resource plan guidelines. Madam Chair, the subcommittee recommended the bill with substitute by a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second. Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we report this bill with the substitute. Any questions from any member of the committee? Then I'll ask the clerk to open the roll. And the clerk shall close the roll. The bill reports with the substitute 17-3. Chair Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 508 from Delegate McAuliffe defines under the provisions relating to small renewable energy projects the term agrivoltaics to mean the intentional co-location of agricultural production and solar energy generation on the same land that's designed to prioritize and sustain agricultural productivity while integrating renewable energy, allows the ongoing production and sale of agricultural products throughout the solar array's life, is part of a farm business, and ensures flexibility for farmers to adapt to market conditions and support operational needs. There was a substitute which amends the definition of agrivoltaics and removes the advisory panel. The subcommittee recommended reporting the bill with that substitute by a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we report the bill with the substitute. Any questions from any member of the committee? Are we ready to cast our votes? I ask the clerk to open the roll. And the clerk shall close the roll. The bill reports 15-5 with the substitute. Chair Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 770 from Delegate Herring provides that a public utility engaged in the business of furnishing water or sewerage facilities may propose and the SCC may approve rates and tariff provisions that provide discounted service to customers with an annual household income equal to or less than 200% of the federal poverty level. There was a substitute, Madam Chair, which removes discounted rates for 80% of AMI, so it would just be for a household income of 200% of the federal poverty level. It also permits utilities to offer a tiered discount system and permits recovery of costs through base rates. And finally, it delays enactment to January 1, 2027. So the committee recommended reporting the bill with that substitute by a vote of 8-1, and I so move.
Been properly moved and seconded that we report this bill with the substitute. Any questions from any member of the committee? Then I'll ask the clerk to open the rolls. Okay. I'm going to pause for a few seconds. Okay. And the clerk shall close the roll. This bill passes with a substitute, 15-4. Chair Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 884, also from Delegate Herring, amends the percentage of income payment program, which provides electric bill payment assistance to eligible customers, to include participation by any retail electric customer of Dominion Energy or Appalachian Power with a household income at or below 400% of the federal poverty guidelines, and directs DSS to update its rules and guidelines related to the program accordingly. There was an amendment to the bill, Madam Chair, which limits electric bills to no more than 3% instead of 6% of household income, or 5% instead of 10% if the primary heating source is electricity. The amendments also change 400% of the FPL to 200% on line 40 and at a delayed effective date of January 1, 2027. With those amendments, Madam Chair, the subcommittee recommended reporting by a vote of 7-2 and referring it to appropriations.
Second. Properly moved and seconded that we report the bill with the amendments and refer to appropriations. Any questions? Any member of the committee? And I'll ask the clerk to open the roll so we can vote. And the clerk shall close the roll. The bill reports with amendments and refers to appropriations 15-5. Chair Sullivan.
Madam Chair, HB 892 from Delegate Shin requires Dominion Energy to provide information relating to forecasting its compliance with renewable energy portfolio standards in its integrated resource plans submitted to the SCC, and requires that certain data be excluded from such forecasting. The bill also directs the Commission to initiate a proceeding to investigate the electric load forecasts prepared by Dominion, Appalachian Power, and electric cooperatives. By November 1, 2026. There was a substitute which specified that the enactment clause is for, quote, utility consumer service cooperatives, and strikes references to customers of licensed supplier in the enactment clause. The subcommittee recommended reporting that bill with the substitute by a vote of 6-3, and I so move.
Second. Been properly moved and seconded that we report this bill with the substitute. Any questions? Any member of the committee?
Madam Chair.
Delegate Weber.
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, question for Delegate Sullivan, or, I'm sorry, question for the patron.
I don't know if the patron is here, but
She's here.
oh.
Oh,
I'm
there
sorry.
she is, Delegate Shin.
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Yes.
Thank you. I would ask Delegate Shin, it said that certain things are, what is excluded? Because it said that certain information is excluded.
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
yes.
might I defer to council on that? Because that description also took me by surprise. I don't think we exclude anything necessarily, but we do ask for additional data as opposed to exclusions. But
Yes, no problem. Delegate Shin, Delegate Weber, and Madam Chair, I think the information that's would be excluded from the proceeding would be the information subject to confidentiality protections to protect consumer-specific information. Let me know if that answers your question.
Delegate Weber?
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions from any member of the committee? And I'll ask the clerk to open the roll for our votes. The clerk shall close the roll. The bill passes. Reports with the substitute, 15-6. Chair Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 893 is my bill, which requires Dominion, as part of its IRP plan, to assess the use of energy storage resources through appropriate modeling that accounts for economic charge and discharge times and represents various economic scenarios. The bill also requires Dominion to evaluate and permits Dominion to propose making investments in energy storage resources in its integrated resource plan. There was a substitute, Madam Chair, which removes the first amended definition section and replaces the term power flow model with appropriate modeling. With that substitute, the subcommittee recommended reporting the bill by a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Any questions, any member of the committee? Then I'll ask the clerk to open the roll. And the clerk shall close the roll. The measure reports with substitute 21-0. Chair Sullivan.
Madam Chair, HB 898 is next from Delegate Herring, which had a substitute which makes it a Section 1 bill directing the SEC to determine in the next relevant cost recovery filing for an electric utility the maximum allowable fees for disconnection and reconnection that utilities can charge for residential customers that were disconnected from service due to non-payment. With that substitute, the subcommittee recommends reporting by a vote of 8-1, and I so move.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any questions from any member of the committee? Then I'll ask the clerk to open the roll. And the clerk shall close the roll. The bill reports 21-0 with substitute. Chair Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 899 from Delegate Shin. The subcommittee recommends that the full committee incorporate that bill into HB 508 from Delegate McAuliffe, which we just discussed a moment ago.
Okay.
So the motion is to incorporate HB 899 into 508.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Any questions from any member of the committee? That's a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. 899.
No, I mean the one that's incorporated.
Oh, what's the bill again that's incorporated, Chair Sullivan?
508 is incorporated into 899.
Okay.
The other
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the other. Thank you. 899 is incorporated into 508.
Okay.
Thank you, counsel, and everyone else in the room who corrected me.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Chair Sullivan, you have another bill.
Yes, I do, Madam Chair. HB 921 from Delegate Lopez permits an individual retail customer of electric energy from Appalachian Power or Dominion Energy whose non-coincident peak demand exceeded 5 megawatts during 2024 or any year thereafter to purchase electric energy from a licensed supplier within the Commonwealth. Currently, such a customer may only purchase electric energy from a licensed supplier if the customer's peak demand did not exceed 1% of the incumbent electric utility's peak load during the most recent calendar year, unless the customer had a non-coincident peak demand of more than 90 megawatts. The bill requires a licensed supplier providing electric energy to such a customer to meet the annual Renewable Portfolio Standard Program requirements on an aggregate basis for all electric energy sold within the incumbent electric utility service territory during a compliance year. There was a substitute, Madam Chair, which changed the 90 megawatt demand threshold from 2006 onwards to 2024 onwards. It changed the 5-year notice requirement to 18 months. It permits Phase 1 and Phase 2 utilities to file with the SEC to adjust rates for the purposes of reallocating costs among customers that leave or rejoin the service. And it prohibits residential customers with a demand less than 150 kilowatts from purchasing electricity from a licensed supplier. With that substitute, the subcommittee recommended reporting by a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any questions from any member of the committee? I'll ask the clerk to open the rolls so we can cast our votes. And the clerk shall close the roll. The bill reports with the substitute 21-0. Chair Sullivan.
Next, Madam Chair, we have HB 1002 from Delegate Tran, which prohibits electric, gas, water, and wastewater utilities from disconnecting any residential customer due to the non-payment of bills or fees prior to making a reasonable effort to offer bill payment assistance, arrange a payment plan, or provide information to the customer for other bill payment assistance or energy savings programs. The bill also requires each such utility to provide all required notices in any language that meets the threshold for having state election materials printed in that language. There was a substitute, Madam Chair, which removed changes to the PIP program and requires the Department of Elections to publish an online list of the localities in which minority languages are required for election materials to be printed. With that substitute, the subcommittee recommended reporting by a vote of, and referring to appropriations, Madam Chair, by a vote of 7-2, and I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we report with the substitute and refer it to appropriations. Any questions from any member of this committee? Then I'll ask that the clerk open the roll so we can vote.
Let me show you.
And the clerk shall close the roll. The measure reports with the substitute 15-6 and refer to appropriations. Chair Sullivan, you have more.
Madam Chair, HB 1062 from Delegate Hernandez had a substitute which creates a pilot program for electric energy conservation, generation, and storage. It requires certain capital investments by Dominion and NAPCO and sunsets in 2034. With that substitute, the subcommittee recommended reporting by a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we report this bill with a substitute. Any questions from any member of the committee? I'll ask the clerk to open the roll so we can vote. And the clerk shall close the roll. The bill reports with the substitute 21-0. Chair Sullivan.
Madam Chair, HB 1191 is from Delegate Shin, which permits a member of a co-op in good standing that had an electric demand of more than 20 megawatts during the most recent calendar year and that requires a transmission line system of at least 230 kilovolts to enter an agreement with the co-op to construct and install a substation in accordance with all applicable laws, regulations, and reliability standards as determined by the Commission, and transfer ownership of such substation to the co-op prior to its operation. Under the bill, the member shall establish an agreement with the co-op regarding reasonable and necessary terms and conditions for such construction and any applicable modifications to the co-op's tariff to reflect the revised cost of service as part of such petition, which agreement shall be subject to the Commission's review and approval. There was a substitute, Madam Chair, which creates a new code section and requires that no costs associated with the member's substation are recovered from any other ratepayers. The subcommittee recommended reporting that bill with the substitute by a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we report this bill with the substitute. Any questions from anyone from the committee? Seeing none, I ask that the clerk would open the roll so we can vote. And the clerk shall close the roll. The bill reports with the substitute 20-0. All right, Chair Sullivan, we're moving on along.
Madam Chair, the end is in sight. HB 1225 from Delegate Shin permits Dominion and Appalachian Power to file a proposed tariff with the SCC to provide utility-owned and operated electrical distribution infrastructure to support electric vehicle charging stations. The bill requires Dominion and Appalachian Power to file transportation electrification plans with the Commission by February 1, 2028, and every 3 years thereafter, and includes requirements for information to include in such plans. Under the bill, Dominion Energy and Appalachian Power are required to seek recovery of necessary and appropriate expenditures for transportation electrification only through their rates for generation and distribution services. The bill prohibits Dominion or Appalachian Power from petitioning for approval of expenditures to construct electric vehicle fast charging stations unless such stations are located at or beyond a radial distance as determined by the Commission relative to the location of any privately owned fast charging station. It also directs the Commission to initiate a rulemaking proceeding to determine the appropriate radial distance for such utility-owned charging stations from privately owned charging stations, and to enter into its final rule in such proceeding no later than December 31, 2027, and to review such final rule by December 31, 2029. Provisions of the bill restricting the radial distance of utility-owned and operated fast charging stations will expire on July 1, 2031. There was an amendment, Madam Chair, which uses the phrase owned and operated on lines 96 and 102, and also strikes on lines 89 and 90, language relating to customer credit invoices. Reinvestment offsets. That's what I meant. Madam Chair, the subcommittee recommends reporting that bill with the amendments by a vote of 9-0, and I so move.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we report this bill with amendments. Any questions from any member of the committee? Seeing none, I'll ask that the clerk open the roll so we can all vote. And the clerk shall close the roll. The measure will report with amendments 20-0. Chair Sullivan.
And
What
finally,
say
Madam
you?
Chair, the third in a row from the prolific delegate Shin. This is HB 1255, which increases from 15 kilowatts to 20 kilowatts the minimum capacity of an electrical generating facility for which certain electric utility customers are required to pay a monthly standby charge as part of the net energy metering program. There was an amendment which inserted the words aggregate nameplate and alternating current on line 168. And with that amendment, Madam Chair, the subcommittee recommends reporting the bill by a vote of 8-1, and I so move.
Okay, it's been properly moved that we report the bill with amendments. Seeing no questions from members of the committee, I will ask the clerk to open the roll. And the clerk shall close the roll. The measure passes 18-2. And now, Chair Sullivan, what say ye?
That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. You know, when we first started and we knew we had over 200 bills, I think we all wondered how we would get it done. Now, we're not finished yet, but Chair Sullivan has 2 more meetings. And then everyone else has 1 more meeting. We're doing a fantastic job, and I just want to thank you all. But we've come to the conclusion of the full committee. The subcommittee 2 will begin. Chair Lopez?
Almost immediately.
He says almost immediately, so we're going to say 3 minutes. Is there a motion that we adjourn the full committee? Committee adjourned.